So in the last video, we created Hello Kitty's body. So today we're going to try to create the feet, and we'll see if we have time to create the arms as well. So the feet we could do in a couple of different ways. We could work with extrusions, but I like using appending to kind of create these type shapes. It's a little easier in my opinion. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the body, and we're going to look at the feet, and they're kind of a cylindrical shape. So because of that, I'm going to create a cylinder. So I'll create polygon primitives, and I'm going to create a nice cylinder and move this out over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to lower my subdivision axis. The reason I'm going to do that is because we have it set to 20 right now, and that is way too difficult to work with. So we're going to lower this to about 8. And I'm going to actually leave it like that for now. We'll add more geometry if we need later. So now that I have this basic shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it this way. And this is going to be the basis of our leg. So I'm going to rotate this about 90 degrees. And let's just take a look. So I'm going to use this to create the left side of the body. I usually just create the left side and we kind of work on the right side later. So for this one, we're going to use the same process as we did with the cube for the body. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale it and get a rough shape of the body, or the foot, or leg. So I'm just going to move it, rotate it, and we want just a rough shape of it. That looks pretty good right there. I'm going to go into my side view. I'm going to bring it in over here. As you can see, I'm going to need to scale this down quite a bit. And for now, I'm only actually creating the pant leg. So I'm just going to be scaling this way, way down, so there's not much to it. And we're going to put that right there. So as you can see, this side view isn't perfectly even, or it's not perfectly from the side. You can see that because you see a little bit of the leg there. You can see the other ear. And because of that, we might have to eyeball this a little bit, but that's okay. So now that we have the pant leg pretty much done, it's time to actually create the foot. So the foot we're going to do in a nice detailed way, because if I look at it from the front view, actually I'll show it from the perspective view, you can kind of see that it has that little lip where the foot comes out. We're going to create that now. So now that I've got that going, I'm going to go to face mode. So I just right click, drag to face. I'm going to hold shift. And I'm going to select all the faces on the front of the leg, just like that. And I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, and I'm going to extrude this. I'm going to click on the center, one of the scaling cubes to get the center scale, and I'm just going to scale it in a little bit. And then I'm going to create another extrusion and push it back a little bit. What that's going to do is it's going to create that little lip of a leg. And then I'm going to do another extrusion. So I'm just going to hit G to do another extrusion. And we'll just go in like that. And then one more extrusion to bring it outwards, just like this. And then I'm going to use this to kind of work as my guide. Move this out of the way. Just like that. Okay. After that, I'm going to take this, I'm going to scale it down because it does have a little bit of a roundness to it. And I'm going to move this as nicely into place as we can. I'm then going to do another extrusion, so I'm just going to hit G again and scale that inwards just so it has a nice round edge. And now we have one leg done. So now that we have this done, it's time to attach it to the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my body right now, and I'm going to see how much geometry I have. So in this case, I have a lot of geometry. So what we're going to need to do is we need to add a lot of geometry to the leg in order to make it attach nicely. So the best way of doing this is I'm going to move the leg out of the way for now. I'm going to look at this from the front view, and I'm going to take a look at where my geometry is at. So the leg's attaching right here. So what I want to do is I want to box off this area as best as I can. And in order to do that, I'm just going to go to Mesh Tools. I'm going to insert an edge loop. And I'm just going to click on edge, and I'm going to bring it as close as I can to there and box that out. Now that I have that done, it's time to start adding my leg. So the best way of doing this is looking at where I'm adding the leg to. So that's this area right here. And I'm going to select these faces and count how many edges I have. So I'm just going to select all the faces that we're going to work with right here. And the only reason I know that this is where it's going to be is that's where it shows up on the leg. So just like that. And let's count the edges. We have 1, 2, 3, which means we should have 3 on the bottom, so that's 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we have a 16-sided hole that we're going to have. So I'm just going to delete that right there, and that's where my leg's going to be attaching to the body. If I look at my leg, we only have an 8-sided hole if I delete these faces. So what I need to do is I need to pretty much double this and get a 16-sided hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert an edge loop. And if I click on an edge loop right here, it's not going to go all the way to the corner, but that's okay, because since it's a triangle, it's not going to split it. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to go in about halfway on each of these edges. I'll actually show from the front so you can see it better. So all I'm doing is just going halfway and creating those edge loops. So now that I have that done, what I could do is I'm going to delete these faces. So I might be only deleting 8 faces, but that's going to still give me a 16-sided hole since there's 2 edges on each of these sides. So you have to keep that in mind when you're working with this. You always want to have the same amount of edges for both sides of the objects you're connecting. So now I'm going to go into object mode. I'm going to move this leg back into place. So let me just do it from the front view. Bring it over here. That looks about right. And now we can start rebuilding. So we're going to start connecting the leg to the body. And that's a pretty simple task. It just might take a few tries. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to first be in object mode. I'm going to hold Shift and select both these objects. I'm going to go to Mesh and then Combine. What that does is now Maya thinks that they're both one object, which is good because that's what we need. But it's also bad because we have 2 holes. But we're going to connect them right now and fix that. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, append to Polygon. I'm going to click on one side, go across to the other side, and I'm going to hit G. G is just going to repeat that command. And I'm just going to go work my way around. Usually I start where I feel is the best spot for it and then just follow my way around. And it's easier for you to do that. And if you ever mess up, like let's say I go over here to this side, I don't want that, you can just hit delete, now undo it. And you could always delete faces later on if you really need to work on it again. So it looks good. Everything seems to be connecting nicely. So let's go over down to here. It's always good to just look at one edge, follow it directly across the other edge, oops, and then hit G. Following the order is really, really important because you don't want to accidentally have the faces go the wrong area. And we could always move these vertices around to make it look nicer later on if we need. But I'm thinking for now we should be in a good place. So it looks good there. And the last one we gotta do is right here. So now that I have this, we've got our leg pretty much set into place. Looks pretty good if I smooth it out by pressing 3. Yeah, it looks pretty good. We could always adjust these vertices to really round them out more. But that's really up to you if you want to do that. It's not super necessary, but I'm going to do it just a little bit right now before I have more geometry in there. And you just kind of want this to look as best as you can. So Oops. All I'm doing is just moving things around, just so it's not as boxy along these edges. Once you get more comfortable with modeling, it usually gets a little easier and a little faster. So that looks good now. Let's take a look at it from perspective view. Yeah, that's rounding out a lot nicer. So the next thing we're going to do is the arm. So the arm is pretty simple. It's going to be almost the exact same process. We're just going to create a cylinder. Going to change this to 8. I'm actually going to change this subdivision height to 2, just to give me a little bit of geometry to work with, because we're going to need that. So I'm going to do the exact same process, where I'm going to bring it over here to the arm. I'm going to scale it so it's about the thickness of the arm, and now is the hard part of this. So while the leg was connecting straight into the body, the arm kind of comes out from the side and drops down. So in order to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to work with the extra geometry added by having that subdivision height as 2, or you can insert edge loops if you need, because that's going to give me access to these vertices right here, so that I can rotate them about a little more than 90 degrees and move them into where I want that arm to go. So in this case, I'm just going to scale this down a bit, so that I'm working with where it's going to connect to the body. And now that I have that done, I could kind of work around with all these different edges and just kind of work with the move and rotate and scale tools to really shape out how I want this arm to look. So in this case, I'm most likely going to be adding extra edge loops in right here and possibly right here. So we're going to do that right now. And that's just going to give me more geometry to work with. That's why I always start with a lower amount, just because it's always easier to add geometry than it is to take it away. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to scale this and see if I really need to add more. So let me just take that, bring this over to there. I don't think I do, but I might, just for the sake of having it rounded off a little bit better. So I'm just going to add that right in there. And let's move it a bit, scale it a bit. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So now that we've got it from one side, it's time to do it on the other side. So as you see, I've been using the center scale tool, which isn't really the correct way of doing it, but because we're just going to end up with weird shapes like this that we have to fix later. So I'm just going to fix it now by doing the exact same process as we did with the body. So I'm just going in, and I'm double clicking in order to go all the way around the edge loop. That's just going to make things a lot easier for me to kind of see what I'm working on and working with it to my advantage. So I'm just rounding this out just like that. This one I'm going pretty far, just like that. Let me move that right over there. Oops. There we go. I'm going to bring this vertex in the center. I'm not going to really need to, but we're just going to do it for demonstration purposes. So now we've got this part of the arm done, but we need to actually create the hand. So for the hand, it's going to be a similar process as we did with the leg. I'm going to go select these faces, just like that. I'm going to extrude them inwards. It's letting me. It seems like it doesn't want to. Let's see. There we go. So I'll just bring it in like that. Doing another extrusion, bring it up. I'm going to scale it in a little bit more. Going to do another extrusion, bring it on out. That's going to create that sleeve of my model. And now we have this area to work with. So I'm kind of eyeballing it at this point because those pictures aren't matching up. So don't worry about that. I'm going to go roughly around there. I'm going to do another extrusion, bring it out to there, and I'm going to where the thumb is pretty much. I'm going to do one more extrusion just for the bottom of the finger, or the hand. After that, I'm just going to go into edge mode, kind of fix this up a little bit. So bring it out like that. I'm going to raise this up right there. And I want this area for my thumb. The reason why I want that area for my thumb is because I can now go in, select these faces right here. Ooh, that looks a bit too long of a hand. It does. So I definitely messed up somewhere, so let's undo that. That's why it's always good to have reference photos that match up properly. So let us fix this hand. So I just kind of brought it back a lot. And I'm going to select these vertices. I'm just correcting this. So it's the same process as what I was doing before, just doing it from the front view instead of the side view. So I'm just going to go reselect these. I'm going to extrude them right around there. Scale it. Do another extrusion because I did that for the thumb. I'm going to scale this down like that and bring it on in like this. And then I'm going to go at it from, actually it looks pretty good on that side. So, back to the thumb. I'm going to find the location where I want that thumb to be, which in this case is going to be right around here. And I'm just going to create an extrusion and bring it out. Since it's kind of at a weird angle, we do have this weird setup, which we don't want because it's going to give us weird shapes like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this icon right here, which should recenter things and make it easier to see. So I'm going to go like that. I'm going to scale it downward that way. And that should be a good enough shape for the thumb. I might make it a little bigger by just adjusting this vertex, just to give it a little more roundness. That looks better. Now that we have the arm pretty much done, we can attach it. So let's go into object mode, move this out of the way. And I know that this is an 8-sided hole right here because I made it with an 8-sided cylinder. So I'm going to know for the body I need to have an 8-sided hole. So this is where it's roughly attaching. And I know that I have 2 here, 2 right here, 2 right here, and 2 right here. So we have 4 faces, which equals 8 edges going around. So I'm going to delete those 4 edges or faces. Select the 2, and I'm going to combine these together and append them just like we did with the leg. So I'm just going to do that. Bring that over there. And now we can start appending. Now this one is a lot easier to append because it is straight on. And everything seems to be working nicely. So that goes there. That goes to there. This will go here. There we go. The last thing I'm going to do before we end this session is I want to move this arm closer to the body. I do have it spaced out a bit just because it's easier to connect something if you have it spaced out more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get a good angle, and I'm going to select all of the faces, which doesn't really want to work right now. You might need to take a couple of tries to get this going. But if that doesn't work, let's just say I'm going to select all these vertices right here. I'm going to hold shift and press period to move up on the next ring. And we're just going to go up to right here where the 2 are connecting. That way I could just move this back into place. And if I really wanted to, I could go in and adjust these more so that they're kind of closer to the body. So I'm going to do that just a little bit right now. It's not a necessary step, but it's going to make it look a little bit better and nicer later on. So that's pretty much all there is to it, to creating the arm. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about creating the head. So after I finish this tweaks, there we go. All right, you can have a nice day.